Phainon literally becomes the boss, one-shots a wave, one-shots the boss's first face, explodes, and just becomes the good old chill guy again. Hello internet! It's every Phainon team in every endgame season as usual, where I'll be testing all of his teams and hopefully it'll help you decide if he's worth it for your account. Disclaimer, FDS here from the Creator Experience server. Oh yeah, one last thing. Understand that Phainon pretty much has infinite amount of ways to use him since he literally just needs to obtain buffs and use ult and boom, profit. Hence I'll be showing teams that makes the most sense. With characters you most likely have and will plan to use with Phainon. It'll still be a lot of characters, so buckle up. First and foremost, here's a decent Phainon build. You'll notice that he's pretty much built like any normal attack and crit based damage dealer, and you don't even need too much speed since his ultimate ignore his relic speed stats. His own Lightcone is great since it actually increases his base speed as an effect, directly meaning you'll be faster in your ultimate, which is great for speedier clears. His relic sets are both the new ones, which is perfect for him, but alternatively you can go with a scholar set and ruler arena set, whichever you have the best substats of. Moving on, let's take a quick look at how Phainon is usually played. His entire shtick is to just use his ultimate with as many buffs as possible. To get his ultimate, it's similar to Akron except instead of debuffs, Phainon gains 1 stack of ult charge for every ally that uses a skill that targets him or regenerates energy for him. So when a Sunday regens energy and targets Phainon, he gains a total of 2 stacks of ult charges. Additionally, he also gains a stack for every attack the enemy targets him with. Once you get enough to ult, you want to make sure all buffs are on Phainon to maximize his damage, and then use his ultimate. During this time, Phainon has more health. He's treated at 60% of his base speed, so your relics doesn't matter in terms of speed. He's immune to all CCs. He plants physical weakness to all enemies, and he will hold all of the buffs for the entirety of his 8 total actions during his ultimate. They will not run out. This isn't even everything, by the way, but the amount of text you gotta go through is just ridiculous now. These are the more important things to keep in mind. In his ult, all your allies are removed from the field, but all of their buff effects will stay intact. For instance, Robin's ult will still do extra damage even with Robin disappearing. This is where you want to use Phainon's highest damage attack, which is the second enhanced skill on the far right. This skill will only do insanely high damage if you have 4 stacks of Scourge stacks, which is this number here. To obtain Scourge, use your enhanced basic, you'll get 2 stacks of it. Or you can use his first enhanced skill, which allows you to gain 1 Scourge stack for every enemy on the field. This skill also action advances the enemy and allows them to attack you. Phainon does have damage reduction while doing this and a bunch more extra health during his ult, so don't worry too much about dying, right? Once they finish their attacks, Phainon counters with an attack that does more damage based on the amount of times he's been hit. Long story short, use your enhanced basic against 2 or less enemies, use your enhanced skill when you're against more than 2 enemies. All of that gains you Scourge stacks, and you can use your second enhanced skill whenever you have more than 4 for maximum amount of damage. You can still use it without the 4 stacks, it's just that it does less damage, but feel free to slam it when the enemy is low. At the end of the entire ult duration, Phainon will do a final attack much like Castrus's dragon when it explodes. It hits hard and Phainon returns to the normal form. You have to do all of that to get his ult again. Now that you understand how he plays, let's take a look at one of his best teams in MOC. We got Phainon, Sunday, Bronya, and whoever else. Let's just start by testing with RMC since everyone has one. But I say whoever else for the final slot is because that the best core for Phainon on the team is really just Sunday and Bronya, where both of them allows Phainon to rack up ult charges the fastest with their targeted action advance and energy regen. Well, in terms of Bronya, it doesn't regenerate energy, but it does have that action advance though. The third slot will change based on what mode you're playing. For instance, you'd find it better to have a Tribi in Pure Fiction than MOC just to clear ways for follow-up attack. But while that is besides the point, you'll notice that once Phainon has enough for his ultimate, I had to make sure Bronya's buff are all on him and instantly use his ultimate. This is to make sure Bronya's 1 turn long buffs from her skill and Lightcone both stick to Phainon along with all other buffs like Mem's buff, right? But now that everything's on him, we'll go ahead and use his ultimate. As you can see, as he ults, everyone is gone from the field and he has all the buffs intact. We have more than 4 Scourge stacks, so it's time to slam it down, and yep, 1.5 million easily. This is where I got very greedy, so I wanted to kill him without using my big attacks, but yeah, as you can tell, 1% HP strikes again. So this is already a non-optimized run, but just keep watching how ridiculous this will be. You still have 2 actions, and both times I did the second enhanced skill, and combined with the explosion on death, it was more than enough to just one-shot the entire phase 1 of Event Read. You know how annoying this boss gets, and we basically just skip the phase with 1 character, dude? So onwards to the next phase. This is where you may have issues surviving if you don't run a healer. I did get quite unlucky with Bronya being hit a lot here, and I also just realized I could have put Phainon in the middle so he can get hit more and we can get more stacks, but it doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, we did get saved by Castrus, and now we just have to repeat the same thing. Buff Phainon, buff him again, and again, buff Phainon. Because we're running triple supports, we get Phainon's ult in no time, but we do have minor skill point issues since I'm using Bronya without E1. Most of you have E1 already, but in any case, it's not too big a deal. We get Phainon's ult activated here with most buffs intact except for Bronya's ultimate though. Reason being, for 1, we will 1000% murder the boss anyway, and for 2, Bronya might die if I try to wait, so you want to be versatile as well if you're playing this team. Now that we have our ult, we slam our skirt stacks and the boss is already almost done. He summons 4 dices, which is perfect for Phainon's first enhanced skill to easily get me 4 skirt stacks per use, which ultimately means an easy kill. We got that boss down in 1 cycle, and considering how annoying Aventurine is, this is very solid. We're able to showcase how he's great against the boss itself and how he's good against all the dices too. Quite the versatile character. With that said, let's move on to the next team. Let's say you don't want to take the risk of dying at all, this is what you do. Slide into Huohuo, which is the best in slot since you can target Phainon with her skill and regenerate energy with her ult. Not to mention with Phainon, if you receive healing effects from a teammate, you do get 45% damage to health increase for 4 turns based on one of his major traits. So having a healer isn't even all that bad for him. Well, a combination of all of what Huohuo can bring helps Phainon gains his ult charges very quick, but any other healer can work too. You just be slower at gaining his ult, right? With this team, you definitely deal less damage during Phainon's ult, obviously, but for the fact that Phainon just does so much damage anyway, we actually ended up not too far behind the first clear. There's definitely also the fact that Huohuo's skill and ult are both actually just better than RMC in terms of giving Phainon his ult charge. But yep, in any case, I try maxing all the buffs on Phainon and have him murder the enemies with the most damage output. He still easily reached the 1,000,000 damage mark. Nonetheless, we're just slightly behind killing Aventurine's whole first phase, and because Huohuo's helping Phainon obtain his ult so easily, we just get another ult with him already. Know that you can get up to 15 ult charges with Phainon, and he will keep any access, right? It would be a solid idea to just hoard the max ult charge, spend 12 to use the ult, so that when the second time when you need more charges, you have 3 extra to start. And that is exactly what happened here. Aventurine get the dices, it's freebie for Phainon's second enhanced skill, we get free skirt stacks, and it's just enough to beat him in 1 cycle as well. Albeit slightly slower than before, but way safer. With that team done, let's take a look at the other options you've got. So you don't have a Bronya, which you can always slap in a Tribi. What you get is actually slightly higher damage than having RMC, which is pretty crazy, but Tribi is way slower in providing ult charges for Phainon. You pretty much see the same exact clear beating Aventurine's whole first phase, and we do see an issue of needing to warm the engines of Phainon for a bit longer than preferred with the second time coming, which means we're just short of the 1 cycle clear in the end because we took a bit too long to like rack up the ult charges. We are still easily beating it though, and this team definitely does not die easily. So if you're less privileged, feel free to go to Tingyun and pair that with Sunday and Bronya. Tingyun is like a more aggressive Huohuo in this case since she has a skill that targets Phainon and ult that targets him and regenerates energy, all of which could get a total of 3 ult charges for Phainon just by doing skill into ult. You also have dance to push the whole team, and all of that for an immensely high rate of obtaining Phainon's ult charges. The damage you're able to do is slightly behind Tribi, but another issue you'll find is how Tingyun is very easily dead. She is the A on a preservation after all, since even at the Shroud of Stariel. We did get lucky and somehow lift though with Tingyun, and thanks to all of the ult charge gain, Phainon gets his ult, protecting Tingyun's squishy ass. And we beat this at around the same time as using RMC. It's another 1 cycle clear. But it's very useful how Phainon was able to protect a squishy character that almost died by just clicking the ult, and you still end up just murdering them instead while protecting your allies. Only Phainon can do this, dude. Let's say you're not even underprivileged, you're just straight up poor. This is where I want to pull out the Phainon, RMC, Tingyun, and Yukong. Now, unfortunately, I would love for this team to work just for Yukong being there, but across the odds of you dying fast and Yukong while having good buffs, she doesn't target Phainon at all, this team is really risky. And for the nail in the coffin, usually Yukong's E6 allows her to just use her ult before a DPS enter the damage window, and they can have the roaring bowstring up and do the most damage with all of her buffs. The idea is that Yukong's great crit rate and crit damage buff can be essentially extended to the full 8 actions of Phainon during his ult, but weirdly enough, if you use Yukong's ult and instantly do Phainon's ult, Yukong's bowstring is no longer there. Well, I swear I use Yukong's ult, I gain 1 stack of it by E6. That means Phainon should enjoy all the buffs, but it's just not there. My theory is that it has something to do with how Yukong's buff is a bit weird, where it's not really a duration based thing and it's not a zone based thing. It's more like just whoever took a turn means -1 bowstring. I could be wrong, but I tested later by using Yukong's skill and then ult with her, giving me 2 stacks of bowstring and then ult with Phainon. If you do it this way, then yep, Phainon keeps the bowstring, and I just realized I should have tested if you can keep the buffs for the whole ult period, but I forgot. But in any case, there really isn't a need since this already means Yukong is not too ideal for Phainon if you have to use her skill first and then ult on top of not having any targeting skill for Phainon. There may be a workaround that someone would find out, or you might just be able to brute force it anyway, but in my opinion, I prefer just using someone else or a healer and get the job done anyway, right? That would mean the most accessible team should be something like, instead of Yukong, you go with a healer, or maybe you have a Bronya already in your account, which most people do. Well, it is preferred to have Bronya for all the targeting skills that she has. If you really don't own her or you don't want to use her, well, good old Ron May should still be able to work out fine. Albeit worse than Bronya because she has less targeting skill on Phainon. But hey, at least she's free. And do not worry, that team still works like a charm. It's really not as good as just slamming on the limited 5 stars, but hey, it gets the job done. The next person I think most people might think of would be Sparkle. And yep, she is quite solid in terms of getting Phainon's ult charge, with her skill and ult both being able to gain Phainon charges. The slight issue you may have is the crazy abundance of crit damage buffs, which just means you'll get diminishing returns, though in the end the damage is still very high. We're hitting like 1.3 million on that wave 1. It's slightly lower than using Tribute or RMC instead, but the pros of Sparkle being in this team though is you officially have 0 issues with skill points. Everyone can spam skills without worries, and not to mention she has the action advance to help Phainon get even more skills out, so you really do help him get more ult charges that way. And by getting Phainon's ult charge quicker, you do mitigate the risk of dying, especially when you want to use it the second time versus the boss. And that's exactly what happened, and it ended up being a 1 cycle clear that's just 2 actions slower than having RMC instead. But by this point, you can kind of tell with whatever support you have, you're not gonna have way too big of a difference. He's still gonna be consistent and versatile. Oh yeah, finally, we still have Robin. Remember when I said there's a lot of characters and teams? Yeah, this is what I meant. There are a lot of Harmony characters in a game after all, and a lot of combinations to boot. But while Robin is still a very common choice for most people, though, this is how they play. This team ended up dealing the highest damage at 1.6 million achieved, only slightly above Tribute and RMC. The problem you might find is Robin not being able to target Phainon at all with any of her skills, but she makes it up by pushing your whole team forward, and your team can in fact help Phainon get ult quicker, so Robin indirectly helps with that. Her ult's effect are all still available during Vainon's ult, allowing him to dunk insane damage. We basically skip the first phase fully and even managed to explode only on the second phase, which just half helps the boss. It's just crazy, dude. And this is where you may find issues with Robin. Phainon was just a step away from being able to use this ult, but since Robin's already used her ult, she no longer really have much avenue to help Phainon. We ended up crutching on Castris again for the win, but this can be avoided with just using a healer, or perhaps just gaining more access ult charges with Phainon in wave 1. There are a lot of workaround with him, and it feels like a number game at times, where you have to manage the number well in order to excel. An example of a workaround for this entire issue is that in wave 1, you want to actually max out Phainon's ult charges at 15, and only then use Robin's ult in order to make sure entire team's already at the front of the action bar. At this moment, if you use Phainon's ultimate, what happens is you finish your ultimate's duration, and all of your allies will return to their previous position in the action bar, which since Robin just did the ult, you're gonna end Phainon's ult by seeing all of your allies just returning to the top of the action bar. That may open up a chance for you to have that window in order to get your second ult quick without needing to die. And that is why it is, in my opinion, the best team and my personal favorite team for Phainon. Robin just does everything very well and gives you a lot of options. Yeah, well, if it's too complicated, just do the usual stuff that I mentioned. And with all that, those are all for MOC. Let's move on to Phainon's least ideal mode, in my opinion, which is Pure Fiction. Now, it isn't to say he's unplayable in this mode, but for the fact that him getting rid of your allies in his ult means you're a lot more limited in the amount of actions you can make. You'll find it's mostly just Phainon in his ult taking turn after turn and running down the action bar while he one-shots everyone easily every action. He also gets a lot of skirt stacks by just using the first enhanced skill, since this is a mode with a lot of enemies, right? So it's free damage for him. This immense benefit does get countered with the con of your entire team basically not being able to contribute damage-wise or utility-wise, while Phainon takes a huge chunk of action bar every ult though. However, let's not have this be proof that he's terrible. We still managed to beat the mode with 35k points, and it's mostly just with allies that did not help much. Like, I did put in a Tribute to hopefully do more damage with follow-up attacks, but the majority of time, Phainon removed Tribute from the field and he just did his own thing. Being able to implant physical weakness is also just a massive benefit for Phainon, making him honestly a very versatile character you can use against any enemy. But surely enough, he ain't gonna be the fastest person to beat Pure Fiction, and that's pretty much it for Pure Fiction, right? You can swap any other buffers I've mentioned before and you'll get similar results, since again, Phainon gets rid of them and he does his own thing. And finally, we have Apocalyptic Shadow, which is honestly a similar scenario. The saving grace though is how in this mode, you can gain your ult for free by breaking the boss. So Phainon here being able to implant physical weakness is perfect for the job. I opted to use Robin since she is just the best at saving action value, right? And to no one's surprise, this team was incredible. With how strong Robin's damage amplifications are and how strong Phainon's damage output is, every ultimate he does is enough to beat the phase. Try as he may, the boss spawn mobs, and you have your first enhanced skill to just farm scourge stacks. If he doesn't have mobs, Phainon's second enhanced skill just deals massive damage to the boss itself. He's uncontrollable in his ult. He heals after every attack. It's just unfair, right? You actually feel like you're the boss. And at the end of every ultimate, you get your ult back, because in this mode, you get it back once you break the enemy. So I just have to make sure all the balls are on me and click my ult again and have one of the easiest clear of my life. Every ult of Phainon just spelled death for the boss's whole phase, and it wasn't even hard. After all, Phainon's value comes with how often he can get his ult, right? So this is what happens when you really optimize when he gets the ultimate. The run ended up as a 3.5k points clear. Very solid stuff. And as usual, you can use any other combination of buffers so long as you use your ult before the enemy kills you. It usually means Phainon outputs enough damage to get you through the whole way for phase, and you can reset after that, do it again, and you win the whole mode. A lot of people are mentioning that Phainon isn't the best at clearing things fast compared to other options with how he removes all allies in his ultimate, which is true, but I also think he's just one of the most consistently good damage dealer that you can use anywhere against any enemies as well. You didn't plant weakness on his ult anyway, so pretty much you can use this team anywhere against any type of enemies, right? Much like a Dahurda Anaxa team. Except with this one, you just need Phainon with whichever buffers you can get. Even if you don't have a Sunday, Tingyun, RMC that are both free will do fine too. Truly a lot of choice for Phainon teams, and that'll be all. I hope I helped you out in deciding if you want to get him, and I'll be cooking more content with him too, along with the buff characters as well. So yeah, subscribe for that. It'd be awesome. That'll be all. Take care.